All right, we're going to try this again. I got a call in the middle of the last recording. It killed the recording. We're covering how to do Fender braces. Things you can't do. You can't come from this side. You have to come from this side. That's why I had to paint so much over here. I put a hole over here. Found out there's a brace here that blocks the bracket from sliding in that way. So in order to slide the bracket in behind the Fender braces, you gotta come from this way, like it says in the instructions. I don't have ABS on this car, so hopefully you can see a little better here. I don't have ABS on this car, so I did not have the pilot hole to use as a guide. So what I ended up having to do here, because I broke my hole saw on the first try, was use a step bit and file out in between and file adjustments. And so this took hours longer than it needed to. The fitment was a lot tighter over here because of that. Chewed up a couple bolts, had to replace them. Did email the guy at Compworks, and he replied within an hour with the correct bolt size. Even offered to mail me out one, but I needed two, and honestly, I just went to the hardware store and got new ones because they're not that big a deal. The hardware store ones will have bigger bolts. He uses JIS bolts, is what he told me, because they use a smaller head. So these are, I think, 14 millimeter bolts, and mine on the other side are going to be 17 millimeter bolts. It's really the only difference. They're both grade 8.8. Really not that big a deal. Grade 8.8. A lot of people say grade 8. Grade 8 is an SAE measurement. 8.8 is a metric measurement. So slightly different rating systems. The door, we took the door off on this side. We used the jack to kind of lift underneath and help hold it up. And then I got on the other side and sort of adjusted. I used Plasti-Dip to spray a reference on the hinges. You can see this one sprayed a little better. This one, the spray wasn't very good, which made the reference not very good. But basically, I sprayed here, and then my brother was able to use that as a guide to help him figure out how to line this up. It's hard to guess. It's even harder to guess when you're working on a car you've never worked on before. My brother's more of a domestics guy. He's into Camaros. I'm into Eclipses and imports. It was kind of a mystery for both of us how to do this, but sprayed that guide there, made the alignment easier. We did have a hell of a time getting this side aligned. And I'll tell you a trick that worked way better on the other side is just leave the door closed. Leave the door closed, skip the jack, take the panel off. Showed you how to do that in another video. I think I posted that up earlier today. Take the panel off and then just grab these parts of the door down here and have one person hold this side of the door up while the other person undoes the bolts, slides the bracket over, and puts it back in. Then, same deal. You've already got it sprayed. Line it back up. You're going to have to do a little bit of jiggling here because you're not going to hold it perfectly still. You're going to have to do a little bit of jiggling over there, but it'll be a lot easier to line up. The door already closes because it's closed. So then you just make sure it's good. And if you look over here, my body lines are a lot cleaner than they are on the other side. And the install went a lot faster that way. Before you take the door off, drill your hole. And again, you're going to use that ABS slot to try to figure out where it's at. But because I don't have ABS, I have to screw just a little bit underneath of it. I ended up using a 1 7/8 drill bit, or a hole saw, instead of a, I think 1 3 or 5/8 or something like that they call for. And then just going all the way to the bottom as close as I could. And it's marred up a little bit here, but we're gonna coat it and paint it over it, and then it's gonna be covered up by the fender. Not a big deal. You can see the larger bolts I was talking about over here. Same size bolt, just larger head. Trying to figure out what else did I run into on this side. Oh, I ran into a lot more rust on this side. What we're doing for rust, some of these bolts like to snap on you when you're pulling off the fenders. We're doing there. So I'm coming in with a step bit, drilling it out, and then hitting it with a rib nut afterward. So that side had one bolt break on me down there. I think this one had one or two break down on me underneath the car, so I'm gonna have to jack the car up to get under there and fix that. Not a big deal. This side had a lot more rust, so we're gonna pour 15 it. Both of the backs of the fenders had some rust on them. This one, not terribly so, but some rust here. This one over here actually started to spread to the front of the fender, all behind where that molding piece is, so you would never see it. And it's not rusted through, so we're just gonna pour 15 it. It won't be exposed to UV light, so I don't need to top coat it. Should just seal it up tonight. All right, that's it, guys. Just leave your door on. Leave your door on. Pre-drill your hole. Use a 1 7/8 hole saw. pop that through. I used step bits after I mounted the brace and just drilled through. That did scratch up or start to step into the back plate here on the front brace. This is not tightened because we have to coat behind there yet. So I did mar it up a little bit, just coated over it. If you want to avoid that, you use the center punch that he shows you in the written instructions and pre-drill it. That just means taking the brace back off and, you know, doing it a couple times. That door's heavy. I didn't want to do that, so that's how I did it. And, you know, I was just real careful not to dig too far into that brace to weaken it. And it's plenty strong. I can lift the car by it. You know, you can grab it and pick it up. Big thanks to another YouTuber by the name Budget Tuner. Did his own video on this. I recommend watching that one too. Learned a lot from that. Same guy that I learned how to do to drill out the subframe bushings with a hole saw with. That saved me a ton of time. I was really fighting those. I think that's everything. Basically, the steps here are finish coating it and bolt it back together. So good luck with yours. Oh, you might actually want to know why you want these. So what these do is they stiffen your chassis here. And the reason you want that is because your suspension's right here. So all the force that goes into a heavy turn that you want to transfer into your suspension doesn't always make it if your chassis twists. So if there's flexion up here, the force will basically transfer into the weakest component. So if this flexes, then that's force that your shocks aren't really absorbing. And if your shocks aren't really absorbing, then you don't really know that your tires are really sticking flat on the road. So you're kind of losing momentary traction. So this helps you a lot in cornering, but also in a hard launch or a hard brake. You know, go and watch Jaffro's videos on fixing the Elantra toe, and that'll tell you how much the suspension matters and how force transfer matters in a drag strip launch. So a lot of people think you only need these if you corner, you know, like autocross or road racing, but there's benefits to them in a drag race too. Now he's not using Fender braces to do his fix. He's doing a much more complicated fix because he's retrofitting a suspension into a Hyundai Elantra, which is crazy. But the same sort of reasoning behind it matters. The flex in the body will take away from the suspension's ability to absorb for that. Now, I'm not an engineer. I am an engineer, but I'm a software engineer. I'm not a mechanical engineer. So I don't know the exact math to explain it. I don't know that you're going to get the same level of benefit in a drag race that you would in a cornering race from doing this, but there is a benefit. Now, that benefit may be outweighed by the added weight, but these weigh like 3 pounds. Not a lot. You'll lose more weight or gain more weight by eating a big breakfast before you race. So I don't really think it's that big a deal. I like to road drive my car, so I'm going to be using, you know, I want a stiffer chassis, especially being a convertible. You know, I think it makes sense just for regular everyday driving, but certainly there's some benefit on tracks as well, if that's what your goal is. All right, guys, take care.